Hello everybody, this is ASMR, and today we are going to be reading this book called The New York Pigeon. So this is a photography book, and I have a pointer here. I'm going to go through it. It's all about pigeons. I love pigeons. I know a lot of people don't like them, but I love birds. I love animals in general, and I think pigeons are wonderful. And the first thing you see when you open this book are just these really adorable photographs of these pigeons. And they're all posing and they look very proud. Like you see him or her. It's hard to tell. They look very proud. This one, the little leg is outstepped. They're so cute. So, the New York Pigeon, Behind the Feathers. In this book, the photographer's name is Andrew Garn, and some of the proceeds of this book go to the Wild Bird Fund, and they help injured pigeons and other birds, which is wonderful. And look at this photo of this beautiful pigeon in flight, the wings upstretched, and then look, he's the classic pigeon gray, and he's got this beautiful purple and teal coloration. I think they're very beautiful birds. Look at this little guy, he's so cute. And look, two pigeons kissing. It's adorable. So, I'm going to talk about the history of the pigeon, then feathers and bone. That's x-rays of the pigeons. The beginning, the history of them. Pigeon portraits, this is my favorite section. Pigeon people, this is also a really nice section. And then some photos of pigeons in the city. And this book is concentrated on pigeons from New York City, even though pigeons can be found all over the world. They're one of the most diverse birds and also among the smartest. So I'm not going to read all of this. I think we're just better off just looking through the photos. Isn't he beautiful? He's got lovely amber color eyes. A lot of pigeons have red eyes. Look at this little guy. He's a beautiful, fancy pigeon. I mean, look at all the colors on his wings. He's got brown and black and gray and white. He's got these cute red feet. See? And he's got this little old-looking beak. He looks like a grandfather pigeon, like a Gandalf, the gray, the wizard from Lord of the Rings. That's what he reminds me of. If Gandalf was a pigeon. Look at this one in mid-flight, and they call this type of pigeon a blue bar pigeon. So this is talking about the history of pigeons. And see this? This is so fascinating. This is actually a discovery made in Egypt, and they call these dovecotes, and they were built in this particular dovecote is from 1890, and the Egyptians built these to allow pigeons to have a place to live, which I think is adorable. And apparently, if you read the book, the ancient Egyptians actually understood how smart pigeons were and how valuable, and they have actually been taking care of them for many, many centuries, which is wonderful. And then this photo here of this little enclosure, this is actually the pigeon display at the Central Park Zoo in 1904. And if you go to the Central Park Zoo now, it's really built up and beautiful. But this is what it looked like over 100 years ago. And they housed pigeons in there, and I'm sure that the pigeons were quite happy because they're very adaptable. So these pictures here show there was this researcher, and his name was B.F. Skinner. And he was a Harvard University psychologist, and he conducted a bunch of studies with pigeons and proved that they're actually incredibly clever. So here he taught the birds how to, he proved rather that the birds could see in 5 different color spectrums, and they can see infrared and ultraviolet light. They can see more lights than we can, which is the same for a lot of birds. Like I have 2 parakeets, and they can see much brighter colors than humans can. like if you put bright colors in the cage, they like go crazy. Or if they see my nails are very sparkly now, especially around Christmas, although my nails are always sparkly. If I go up to my parakeet cage, although I don't call my parakeet's cage a cage, I call it their palace, because it's very big and it's decorated with lots of toys and they're happy in there. But if I hold my nails up to the cage and the parakeets see them, they start singing and they go crazy, and it's really cute. And then here, this was another study by B.F. Skinner, where he was teaching the birds how to, let me read the thing here. Oh, if you rewarded them with food pellets, they could learn a bunch of tasks. So here he taught them how to play competitive sports. He taught them how to play essentially like a form of pigeon football or soccer. And then up here, this is one where he taught them, let me see here. She takes the pigeon into a training harness. This is when they were training them, I guess, to push the buttons to prove that they could see ultraviolet light. But even though this one's being like tied up, they were being very gentle with them. They weren't doing anything to harm them. He, by all accounts, really liked pigeons. And then this is an X-ray of a pigeon and what they look like. They're skeletons. You can't see the feet though. Missing the feet. Not the skeleton. The image of the feet's off the page. But they're talking about the different parts of the pigeon, and even their skeletons are really adorable. They're so cute. And they look like little dinosaurs. Oh, and then these are close-ups of all the different colors. You have brown, you have red, you have gray, you have green, a lighter gray, this lovely orange color, this beautiful, almost owl-like mix of brown and white and black, this mix of two different color browns, this brown color, this like purplish color, these beautiful white feathers, and then these beautiful gray feathers mixed with green. These are all feather details on pigeons of different diversity of color, shape, pattern. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And then here, this is showing the pigeon skeleton from the side, or an X-ray of the pigeon rather from the side. And look, he's got a big belly, because they're these cute little plump birds. And then this just shows the different color eyes. This pigeon has a white eye, and this guy has a beautiful red eye with a little bit of yellow on the inside. This is the most common color for eyes that I've seen with pigeons. But as you can see here, there's lots of different colors. That one has a white eye, and there's the red eye, that's more of an orange eye. And this again is kind of red, orange, blue, blue, brown, red, red, white, red. But you can see this whole spectrum of colors, and they're all adorable. Now, this is a lovely section. This is showing the pigeons when they're babies. So this is a little tiny newly hatched pigeon. Look at it, it's so cute. His eyes are closed, and it's got a little tiny bit of feathers, but it's mostly just skin, and the little feet haven't even like expanded yet. And then this is one after it's out of the shell for a while, and as you can see, it's fluffy. Like here it has feathers, but they're soaking wet from being in the shell. And then this is what it looks like when it dries and is maybe like a couple of days old, like a day or two old. They're so cute. And then there's the sibling pigeons, and they are cuddling. And according to the book, these babies are 2 hours old. So I guess in 2 hours they do dry and already have that much fluff on them. It's really adorable. And here's a picture of a mommy pigeon sitting on a nest, and there's a daddy pigeon with a fledgling. And the book cites, socially progressive male and female pigeons both tend to their young. So they're very good parents. On this page there's a poem about pigeons. And this is so cute. So this is a fledgling, He's 25 days old, and he's stretching his wings, getting ready for takeoff. And this one is a little tiny baby. It's 2 days old. And according to the description, it's saying baby's first mambo steps, because it looks like he's doing the mambo. And it says at 2 days old, this baby was orphaned. He was hand-fed by a concerned rehabber. Now, at 10 days, he is curious and confident. So, excuse me, he was orphaned at 2 days, and in this picture, he is 10 days, not 2 days. Just over a week old, and he's really cute. Look at all the different colors on him. Ooh, and then look at this one. So this pigeon's name is Rick, and his story is that 3 caring theater goers brought Rick to the Wild Bird Fund, mistaking him for a baby hawk after hearing him crying inside an abandoned shopping bag on 9th Avenue. Around his caregivers, he pretended to be a hawk too, until he was released into a pigeon flock in Central Park and realized his true calling. He's adorable. Seems he's only a baby. This one, when I first saw it, I burst out laughing when I saw this because he looks like a turkey. His name is Platypus, and channeling his inner ostrich, I photographed this orphan fledgling at the Wild Bird Fund once he was properly fed and hydrated. I had found him scared and helpless, squeaking for food behind a tree planter on bustling 3rd Avenue. He later grew to a robust 300 grams and was released. Look at the colors, the white beak and the little pink neck and the yellow feathers and the blue eyes, blue with the purple, with black irises. This one is called Luna, and Luna came into my life as an egg. Her nest atop an air conditioner in an air shaft was about to be removed by a building landlord. I intervened and took the egg home, incubating it on a heating pad. One morning, to my astonishment, the shell was broken, and there she lay, a squirming 1-inch yellow fluff ball. For 16 days, I was her only parent. And these little segments were written by people that the photographer interviewed when he was working on this book. Look at this glorious centerfold. So this is just an orphan juvenile pigeon. This is what they look like when they're little. And they're starting to get these feathers in. This is what the feathers look like when they first grow in. A lot of birds are like this. Parrots and parakeets, when they get their feathers in, they almost are like encased. If you ever felt these type of feathers, it feels like they're like encased in plastic, and then the film kind of pops off, and then the feathers grow in like really nice and soft, like we know feathers to be. But it's really weird. It's almost like, there's like a proper term for it, but I don't know what it is, but it feels like, if you touch these, it literally feels like plastic. It's so strange. And also, I know like with parrots, when this stage, they're very, very itchy when the feathers are growing in, so if you can pet them, it gives them relief. Because like, and even when they're growing up in the wild, their parents like groom them, and I think that gives them some relief. So at this ungainly life stage, I don't think it's ungainly, I think it's adorable. Permanent feathers have pierced the skin, sprouting on the wings, back and neck. Meanwhile, the head retains its downy baby feathers. Within a week, the feathers unfurled, and he blossomed into the familiar, glorious, full-grown pigeon we all know. Now, these are portraits of pigeons. So this incredibly handsome young man is called Apollo, one of the first patients of the WBF, the Wild Bird Fund. He now lives happily in the front window of the WBF headquarters on Columbus Avenue, where his elegant beauty enchants passerbys. And Columbus Avenue is a place in New York City. It's in Manhattan, which is like the most famous borough of New York City, the city. And then this adorable creature is Nick. And they believe that Nick was a racing or homing pigeon, and he was found stranded on a street corner. And he was brought to the Wild Bird Fund, and they released him. And after they released him, he came back the next day because he liked it there so much he didn't want to leave. Oh, and look at this one. So this is Jana. And Jana was rescued in Riverside Park after exhibiting signs of torticollis, which is a twisting of the neck that was most likely caused by lead poisoning. Once treated, she recovered and is shown here exercising her finely hued brown and gray wings. How beautiful she is. Love this little guy's face. This is Fido, and he was found as a baby, and he was found underneath an elevated train in Queens, which is a borough of New York City. He was brought to the Wild Bird Fund, and he bonded with the people there. And he was so young that he became imprinted on people, so he couldn't be released into the wild. And he was very fortunate that a lovely couple adopted him, and he now lives with them in Queens. And the couple that adopted him, their names were Eugene and Coari, and we're going to see them a little further on in the book. But look at him, he's so cute. Oh, look at this beautiful one. This is Mrs., and she was found on a sidewalk, and her leg was crumpled. She was given a splint at the Wild Bird Fund, and then when she was healing, a handsome fellow patient caught her eye, and a long courtship ensued. This guy is called Brooklyn, and they believe that Brooklyn was an escaped racing pigeon, and he had some lead in his system. So when he was taken to the Wild Bird Fund, they made him better. They nursed him back to health, and then they drove him to a park, and they hoped that some pigeons would come along. And instead, there was nobody at the park but a bunch of Canada geese. And Canada geese are my favorite animals, by the way. I think they're so sweet and kind. I love Canada geese. And this little bird joined the Canadian geese, and the flock accepted him. And then, as the researchers watched, about an hour later, a whole bunch of pigeons came along, and he flew off with them. But he was looked after by the Canada geese until the other pigeons came. So I think that's such a touching story. Look at this pigeon. He's gorgeous. So this one here is called Vivian, and she's a fancy pigeon with the sweeping updo. And this is a girl. This is Oscana, so she's beautiful. And Oscana was suffering from coccidia and roundworm. I'm probably completely butchering those pronunciations. But after treatment, she blossomed into a beautiful, healthy bird. This is Sandy. Sandy flies through the page. So there's her head. And there's her tail. It's a lovely, playful photo. And then this one is Scale. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. He was found living around a hot dog stand, and he was unable to fly because his wings were covered in grease. At the Wild Bird Fund, I gave his feathers a 105-degree Dawn bubble bath. Wow, Dawn is a soap that's like really good for cleaning off animals that have been trapped in oil spills. And then once dry, he was able to fly again and be released, but not before posing for his close-up. So if you find a bird that's covered in oil or grease, get Dawn. There's actually a baby duckling on the containers. Look at this guy. I love the red feet. I love the pigeon's red feet. This one is called Sylvester. He was rescued by a concerned citizen after a cat attack. Sylvester was cleaned and bandaged. Recovered, he poses here a month later with a prize corn kernel. And then this one here is Elfie. Looks a bit like an elf. Found in July as a squeaker, that's like when they're little babies, stumbling in Soho, Elfie was severely underweight and neurologically damaged from lead. She was fed a proper diet, and the lead cleared from her body by September. She flourished into this unusual lavender-eyed beauty. And this one is Artemis. And this one is Pandora. He doesn't have a story attached. This one does. An escaped fancy pigeon. See her fancy feet. With a pair of feathery go-go boots, Pandora was emaciated when found on the street, probably unable to survive on her own. After feeding and additional fluids, she was adopted by a pigeon fancier who thoroughly appreciated her unique beauty. And this one is Marilyn, a saddle pigeon with perfect symmetrical wings, which form a heart shape when closed. She was found limping with a string wrapped around her toes. Look at her beautiful wings. What a gorgeous bird. And this one's called Karina. There's no story with her, but she's very beautiful. This is Joel. Look at Joel's beautiful wings. Joel was found missing primary and retrace feathers on his wings. Joel was released once his feathers grew back. I wonder what happened. This one is called Racer. There's no story, but this to me is like the most classic type of pigeon. This is like the red eyes and the gray body and like the purple and teal tints at the neck and a little bit of white. This is like to me the classic pigeon. This one's Betty. She's very cute. This is Roger. And this is Atlas. And this one is called Bobo. And this one's called Noodleman. Noodleman, it's a great name. This is Mars, and he was found wandering Times Square at dawn. Oh, it's a girl. She is a friendly bird who enjoys nesting on top of the Wild Bird Fund volunteers' heads. She was quickly adopted and now lives in Brooklyn. Look at her beautiful hair. She looks like Lady Gaga, the Lady Gaga of pigeons. Very fancy, very dressed up, very avant-garde-ly. This one here is called Dr. Brown. He was rescued by a veterinarian. Our magnificent cover boy is a pigeon with true attitude, shown here flexing his wings and massive chest muscles in an interpretive homage to a kabuki dancer. So, this pigeon is the same boy that's on the cover. So that is Dr. Brown. Oh, look at this one. And they just say this bird's name is Kevin. There's no story. This one is Lottie, and she was found with a hanging wing and severely dehydrated. Lottie was given a wing sling and a rest for 2 months until she was released. And then this one here is Blake, and he is possibly a mixed fancy with a red beak and eye seri. He strikes a slim, elegant posture. He's red beak too. This one's Almond. Oh, look at the colors of this bird. What a gorgeous bird. They're all gorgeous. So, Speckles. Perfect blacking and a double ring of eye gears distinguish this bird from Howard's flock in Bushwick. Oh, Howard is a man we're going to meet further on in the book, and he keeps pigeons. I love this page. So this one's name is Buster, and this one's name is Rose, and he's gray, she's brown. The gray is a bit more common to see, but the brown ones are very beautiful too. That they are together. And this one is Chi-Chi, and she's got gold tip feathers, a little more brown on the page really, and she has little head tufts here and here, and they set her apart from the crowd. They look like little devil horns, but she looks more like an angel than a devil. And this one is called Marie, and this poor bird had lead poisoning, and she's now recovering and showing off her beautiful wings. I love this picture. The wings flapping, and you just see the little eye and a hint of the beak peeking out. Love that photo. And here is the bird after the wings have come down, and his name is Pudding. And they don't say what happened to Pudding. Oh, look at this beautiful bird. This one is named Dodo to reference the pigeon's relationship with the extinct bird. Dodo has a snow-white head set against a multi-hued chest. She was brought in as a young pigeon to be treated for conjunctivitis and respiratory distress. And she looks like she got better. Okay. So this little guy is Ryan. And Ryan was rescued as a fledgling stuck to spikes under a building awning on the Upper East Side. He was tube-fed, then given a strict diet of puppy chow until fully grown, then released. Look at him. I can't believe people put spikes up. I hate it when I see that. To like scare them away. It's so horrible. And this is Willoughby. And they don't give a story about Willoughby, but he's very handsome. And even his shadow is cute. This one is called Margarita. And this one is called Svetlana. And look at how she can almost turn her head completely around. They're kind of like owls. A lot of birds can do that. This one is called Airy. Airy was found in Washington Heights with a hanging wing, unable to fly. After treatment, he was adopted into a home where he might live 20 years, as opposed to the 1 to 3 year average lifespan of a street pigeon. Same thing with cats. Indoor cats live a lot longer than outdoor cats. It's a tough life outside. This one is Champagne. Champagne is an escaped homing pigeon, and she is 600 grams, which is twice the weight of a standard pigeon. Now, I'm sorry, it's a boy. His feet are bandaged to help heal bumblefoot, a sweltering of the feet caused by poor cage conditions. So, see the little bandages? They're red to match the cute little feet. And that poor bird was not in very good condition, so I hope they kept it at the Wild Bird Fund and find it a better home. So this beauty here, oh, there's no name with this one. This one was for sale at a store in Brooklyn for $7.50. Very beautiful bird, obviously well cared for. And this one here is from the loft of a man named Tom Fahmy, who was a lifelong pigeon keeper. And again, very healthy, beautiful looking bird. And then this bird's name is Elmer. And Elmer looks like he has such a wonderful personality. Look. So cute. Now, this one, look at this bird fly. I love this. It's all the same bird. This is Gansvort, and he was found covered in dirt at a construction site on Grandvort Street in the Meatpacking District. That's again another place in Manhattan. He was cleaned and given indoor flight time before being released. So he's all better. This one's called Mustard, and this one's called Ruby, and this one's called Sally. And they're all beautiful. Now this is kind of sad. Look at this poor bird. So this one is called Carbuncle. His overgrown eye rings and operculum, that's this part right here, on the upper beak are a result of intentional breeding. Found huddling under a car in Red Hook, that's a neighborhood in Brooklyn, he probably escaped from a breeder's coop. Because of reduced vision, he was unable to live in the wild and was later adopted by the Wild Bird Fund. I mean, if this was a disease, I would understand, but who in their right mind would intentionally breed a bird to look like this? I mean, I think he's still cute, granted, but I mean, that's got to be really uncomfortable. Like, I don't know if he can, like, close his eyes properly because you can't see it from the side, but that looks, it looks like it could almost prevent him from opening the beak. I mean, he must have a good quality of life if the Wild Bird Fund kept him, but I feel sorry for him. Like, I can't believe anybody would intentionally breed a bird. You know, that cannot be comfortable. Now, this guy here also has the overgrown skin on the eyes and beak, but not as bad. This one is called Barnacle. There's no story, but Charlie at Pigeons on Broadway, another organization for birds, said, "He's so handsome, isn't he?" And I agree, he is very handsome. And he looks like he at least has like a good, he's more comfortable. This one's name is George. George is very regal looking. There's no story. This one is Fancy Nancy, and she's also very regal looking, so I think they're paired nicely together. There's no story on either one of them. This is Sleepy Red. This is Sleepy Gray. This one is called Hortense. 15% of all the pigeons admitted to the Wild Bird Fund have lead poisoning. One of the symptoms is paresis or paralysis of the feet, as shown here. Look, it doesn't actually say paralysis, it says paresis. I have not heard that word before. But anyway, see the way that the feet are kind of turned inward? I really hope they can make her better. That looks really uncomfortable. And she's such a beautiful, calm-looking bird. She's got like those beautiful blue lavender eyes. This is Luigi, and this is King. Look at him, he looks like he's wearing a big robe, fit for a king. And this is the wings of two different birds. This is a red bar wing and a blue bar wing. This beautiful contrast. This is Santa. He is a typical red bar. He was found on Christie Street, again a neighborhood in Manhattan, on Christmas Day, malnourished and filthy. And obviously he's all better because he looks very robust and he's very clean. He's very dandy. And this one is Fred, and he was found with wire binding his feet near the New York Public Library on Fifth Avenue. That's one in Manhattan that's very famous. String, human hair, and wire frequently get wrapped around pigeon toes and legs, stopping the blood supply and eventually causing atrophy and toe loss. Poor baby. So they rescued him though, so he's safe. They got it off him. Now this chapter describes me, and it's about pigeon people. And this is a wonderful photo of a woman, and she's feeding a bunch of pigeons, and she looks like she's on the steps of the Metropolitan Museum of Art, which is a very famous museum in New York. And And it's so funny when you feed pigeons, they swarm. They're hilarious. They come in droves. You feed one and they will show up. So I'm not going to read the whole thing here, but this lovely lady. Her name is Rita McMahon, and she rescues birds, and she is currently the co-founder and director of the Wild Bird Fund that does much to help these beautiful birds. And the bird that she's holding here is called Chumley, and she even has a pigeon pendant on. So this is a woman who is just a very nice, caring, kind person who loves pigeons and has dedicated her life to saving many of them. So God bless people like that. Now, this is a pigeon coop. So these are pigeons flying over Bushwick, Brooklyn. You see a whole bunch of them flying in the air. And here they are on the ledge, and they're all different colors. They look like they're having a conversation. They look like people lined up on Black Friday, like having a conversation. And this is Howard, and he is a rooftop pigeon keeper. And Howard is one of the people whose birds was further back in the book. And he allowed the photographer to come in and take a bunch of photos of his birds. And I'm going to try to zoom in here to show you. But Howard takes really, really, really good care of his birds. Like, you see the way that they all have their own little cubby holes, and he's got the little dishes, and they all look really plump and happy, and see the way they're looking at him, because they probably associate him with food. When people come along, they probably think, oh, look, it's those things that feed us. But he looks like he takes really good care of his birds. So people were kind to animals, and not kind to people. So this man is Tommy, and this is another man who has birds. So there's some birds from the coop. There they are flying. Oh, and these are Eugene and Kawari, and this is a couple that live in Queens, and they have adopted birds. So remember further back there was a story about the pigeon that was found underneath the subway line? Well, this kind lady found that pigeon and brought it to the Wild Bird Fund, and then ended up adopting it and keeping it. And now she and her husband have over 30 birds in their home, which is a spotless apartment, so they still keep the apartment very clean despite the birds. And this man and her husband Eugene has actually gone ahead and become a veterinary technician with the Wild Bird Fund. So I just think that that is such a beautiful story. Look at all the birds. Look at this cute little guy. She's holding one and he's flying. So adorable. And this lady is an artist. This lady she goes by the name Mother Pigeon, but her real name is Tina. And see all these birds around her? They're not real. They are made out of felt. So this lady is a pigeon advocate. She loves pigeons. She's a well-known artist. And she makes these felt pigeons and sets them up. And you can buy them. I don't know how much she sells them for. If I ever saw her, I would definitely want to buy one because I think it's adorable. And she does a lot of good things for, like, animal rights in general. But she loves pigeons. And I agree. I love pigeons too. So, but it's so funny because, like, at first glance, you would think they're real pigeons, but they're not. And she even made a felt slice of pizza here as a pigeon eating pizza. So this lady's name is Jennifer, and Jennifer is an opera singer, and she's known for raising newborn orphan birds. And this bird that she's posing with here is named Lulu. And then this man's name is Charles. Look at all the pigeons he has on him. This man's name is Charles, and he likes to feed these pigeons at a nearby park. And he named them. So from left to right, we have Baxter, Martha, Roger, Baxter Jr., Jim, Doug, and George Washington. And here we go to another section, Pigeons in the City. And here's a pigeon on a windowsill looking out at the iconic Empire State Building. And this looks like an illustration, but it's not. It's a blurred photo. And these are pigeons flying on the steps of the New York Public Library on Fifth Avenue. That's the famous library with the two lion statues outside of it. So this is a pigeon pair enjoying a close-up view of an ornate cathedral details at the historic Alwyn Court in Midtown Manhattan. Look at this. A red-tailed hawk watches pigeons from the clock on St. George's Church, overlooking Stuyvesant Park. So he will eat pigeons, so the pigeons better run away. But hawks, they eat pigeons, but they have their own families to feed. Hawks are very beautiful too. I feel bad when they catch pigeons, but that's the cycle of life. And this is such an adorable photo. This is a red-barred pigeon shaking off excess water after enjoying a sprinkler on a 100-degree summer day. So he or she looks like they enjoyed that bath. There's a bunch of pigeons flying overhead, flying among the skyscrapers. And there's two pigeons kissing. They call this pigeon courtship. And there's a bunch of pigeons sitting on a statue in the financial district. Oh no, this is the financial district. Again, Manhattan. This, they don't say where it is. And this is a statue head in Columbus Circle. Just again, Manhattan. Oh, and look at this photo. Look at all the pigeons. So here we have 89 pigeons huddled on the Washington Square Arch, again in Manhattan, during a snowstorm. Snowflakes help pigeons keep clean in the winter months when water is scarce. So snow is not bad for pigeons. And these are pigeons taking a rest on an electrical line in the Bronx. And this is probably one of my favorite pictures in the whole book because the caption is so funny. So this is a beach in Brooklyn called Brighton Beach. And this is a picture by the photographer. I attempted to take a mental break from pigeons by heading to the beach, but they knew how to find me. So I love this because this is a photo that the photographer, I mean, obviously he took all these photos, but this was not a picture that was sent in to him. This is a picture that he took on his day off when he was just trying not to think about birds, and yet there was one right there. So cute. And here are pigeons in a cubby hole, in a coop. And everybody looks really happy and well fed. This is just a loft in Brooklyn. They don't say who it belongs to. And these are pigeons flying above a bunch of factories, again in Brooklyn. And here are some pigeons resting outside of this famous old bathhouse in Coney Island. And this is in the winter. It says, soaking in the late afternoon winter sun in Coney Island, Brooklyn. And then rooftop scene. So there's a bunch of pigeons on a rooftop in Brooklyn. And I have a sinking suspicion that before this photo was taken, he threw some seed to them. Because when you throw seed to them, they get really excited and they swarm and they do this. It's really cute. They like huddle. It's so adorable. I love all the different colors. And then this is a photo of people at the Wild Bird Fund who go to help these birds that they find. So in this photo, they are removing string from pigeon toes, which can block circulation and cause eventual toe loss. So you see, they're getting that string off before it can hurt him. His foot still looks healthy though, so they got there in time. This poor pigeon had 2 broken wings. So as you can see, they bandaged him up and he's recuperating. And then these are some of the lovely people that work there. And I'm going to zoom this in because I want to show you some of the details. So there, she's holding a pigeon wrapped up. There's a pigeon sitting there. And look in the dish. She has a little tiny baby pigeon. Do you see it? She's holding a pigeon. She's holding a pigeon. He's holding a pigeon. She's got one in her hand. She's got, looks like a dove. She's got a pigeon. And then this lady here is also holding 2 tiny babies, 2 tiny fledglings. Do you see? She's got a pigeon. And he's got a pigeon on his head. And then there's another one in the cage here. It looks like he's sleeping, unimpressed by the picture. But I just thought that was adorable. And then here's a photo, or partial photo, of Andrew Garn, who created this wonderful book. And he's got a pigeon on his head there too. And I don't think he minds, because I think he likes pigeons. And then here's the back of the book and the pigeon's eye. And that's it. So there we go with the wonderful world of pigeons. Wonderful photos. So I hope you liked this video, and I hope you like animals and pigeons, because I certainly do. And please check back to my channel soon for more videos. Good night.